Well, I'm so excited to introduce today's guest. So I have Stephanie Harrison, who came into my life after I read her book, The New Happy. So she's not only an author, she is actually, I'm going to self-proclaim the creator of a new movement, right? And things that she wants to bring into the world about how we think about what happiness is. And I just can't wait. I've got so much to ask her, so much personal excitement because I read this book in November of 24 and it's really just spurred a lot of the things I want to do in 2025. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy and honored to be here.
Oh, I am more so, but I always like to have my guests kind of introduce themselves. They want to hear from you, and really, in whatever way you think is best. How did you sort of end up thinking about the topic of happiness and writing such a thoughtful, but very logical and easy to understand book?
Oh, well, in many ways, it really started with my own unhappiness. I really did not ever feel the happiness that I felt like I wanted to experience and that I still hoped was out there, even though it had never alighted in my life. And I see myself in many ways as a victim of old happy, which we'll talk a little bit about, I'm sure. But this is sort of the societal understanding of happiness that we've been conditioned into that tells us the things we need to do in order to be happy. And so I tried to get the best job and I tried to go to the best school and I tried to live this perfect life. And I felt miserable and hollow. And like, what's the point of doing all of this? And
Hmm.
eventually I sort of had this moment of despair, classic lying on my bedroom floor, feeling like, what's the point of continuing to go on if you can't be happy? And then ultimately it led me to this moment of maybe I've been told all the wrong things about happiness. Maybe it's not me that's the problem. Maybe my instructions were incorrect, and that's why I'm not getting to the destination I want to go to. And
Mm.
so that kind of experience compelled me to go back to school and to study the science of well-being, and eventually to come up with this, new philosophy of well-being, and then try to teach it to people wherever I can.
Wow. So let's talk about the new happy. So if you're listening to the show, raise your hand if you've ever had that moment like Stephanie and me, where you're like, I will personally tell you because this hit me so hard. I have these incredible businesses. I really do wake up and I love what I get to do. But and I got married and I had my kids and I did all the things. I went to medical school and I did all the things. But there's always just that thing in your head, and it's almost embarrassing to say out loud that you still are like, where is this happiness medal? And when is it going to take away all of my pain? So if that ever happened to you, raise a little mental flag. But let's talk about what you mean by old happy.
Yeah, so old happy is basically this broader set of conditioning, this worldview that we have been taught to adapt. And it tells us who we need to be and what we need to do in order to be happy. And so it really has three core components that will likely sound familiar to you. So the first is that you're not good enough. You're
Hmm.
just, you're lacking. You're always flawed, no matter what you do. But Old Happy tells you that if you can just achieve a certain set of societally approved goals, then that will fill you up and prove that you're good enough. And that's what drives a lot of us to go through that checklist that you're describing of trying to
Uh-huh.
do all of the things, thinking, oh, this is going to be the thing that fills me up. And
Uh-huh.
then lastly, it tells us that you have to do all of that by yourself. You can never lean on other people. You can never ask for help. You have to carry the weight all by yourself. And if you can just force yourself to do these things, then society tells you you'll be happy. Unfortunately, what we know from the years of research that have been done by many brilliant scientists and the 10 years of research that I've done, it doesn't work. And in fact, these are the things that make us the most unhappy.
Yeah.
So,
Uh-huh.
so basically, to sum it up, we're pursuing happiness. We think we're pursuing happiness, but we're actually pursuing misery, and no one
Yeah.
knows.
I mean, what a clearly said thing to say, and at the same time such a massive shift, right? I watch my daughter. She still wants, she's in third grade. She wants to
Mm.
read the most books. She wants to get the best grades. She wants to, get the role in Annie, the play. Like all of those things we can dissect because an 8-year-old probably is doing them more for her than society. But I mean, these are massive concepts that are really ingrained in us.
They are, yeah. And, it's really hard to even tease them out. Like part of my research, it took me 2 years just to be able to articulate the idea of old happy in a way where I felt like it was validated by the research and also could be clearly explained. And so when I say
Yeah.
it now, it sounds almost like simple or maybe like, of course, we all feel this way. But the fact is that this conditioning starts at the very first moments of our lives from our babyhood. We're conditioned to be celebrated as children for how independent we can be from our parents, how little work we require. Parents brag about, oh, my kid
It's the
required no
easy
support.
one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is what's rewarded and celebrated.
Wow.
And no one is doing this out of malice, right? Like, I think that's
Right.
really important to articulate. No one is doing this to cause harm. We're doing it because we think we're pursuing happiness and because
Yes.
we have these generations of messages that we've internalized. And unfortunately, as our society has continuously become more atomized, more separate, more individualistic, more focused on external presentation, we've
Yeah.
become more vulnerable to a lot of these things.
So then is it safe to say, and we might be going into like literally the dark ages, like I don't know, Heather, but I'm sure you've thought about this, like before modern society, capitalism, which we always had little threads of, when we lived in a community or we lived together, is that maybe more how our programming actually works? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yes, absolutely. It's a really great question, and I think it's the truth. Our modern selves are like a tiny pin peck on the spread of evolution, right?
Evolution.
Yeah, like we
Right.
are we are not adapted for this moment in time, and we are
No, no.
we were meant to live in communal experiences. When you think about parenthood or motherhood, and it's like you're not supposed to be the only person who's there for your young child. Obviously, that a baby has the longest developmental period of any mammal that exists. We are
Right.
so dependent upon our parents for our survival. And placing that burden on the mother alone in so many cases in our society, of course, women are struggling. Of course, they feel burnt out. They're trying to do that. They're trying to provide for their families in a system that doesn't support them. And then
Right.
they're told that they should also be somehow presenting themselves perfectly on social media and talking about all of the wonderful things that they're doing to enrich their child and set them up for success in old happy. Like,
Right.
oh my God, I feel
Right.
stressed just thinking about
Thinking about it, I
it.
know. Me too, because I'm like, I know if I open my phone, I'm gonna see them.
I know. It's like, and then it's like, oh my God, like, look at all these women who are doing it better than me. And I should be like them. And that will make me happy. And it's like, we sort of, sometimes, like, lately I've been talking about it and thinking about it. Like, everybody wants to be happy, right? It's our biggest goal in life. And so if you want to exploit people, tell them to do certain things in service of their own happiness. Tell them that you'll get the thing that you want most if you can just conform to these norms or abandon your true self or, try to achieve these things that actually benefit, our capitalist society rather than your well-being.
Right.
And we have to be really careful. And the kind of the funny thing is like you were untangling your microphone thread before we recorded. And like that's sort of what this is like. It's like this untangling process of unwinding these beliefs and how pervasive they are.
Yes. Oh, can we digress and talk about how you do incorporate your artwork?
Mm.
So artistic. Have you always had this artistic side? I'm going to guess the artistic, creative part of your brain that makes you happy to incorporate that into, a lot of your artwork isn't. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like you don't traditionally see in books explaining these concepts, but the way you do your artwork in your book, which I highly recommend, you need to go grab her book if you haven't already. And I'm not just saying that because I interview a lot of people who've written books. This book has been amazing for me. How did that come about of like bringing in artistic side to explain these difficult concepts?
It actually came out of a really hard time in my life. I had always wanted to be an artist when I was a kid. I loved to make art. It was my, probably my passion, my favorite class in high school, but it was something that was stamped out of me by old happy because like
Right.
how you
Right.
you can't be an artist.
Right. We
Like
know that. Exactly.
not possible.
I
And
know.
then when I was I had left grad school and I was thinking about how to communicate these ideas to people. And I realized that for the most part, a lot of the time, it's really easy to sort of take a message in and have it go out the other ear, right? Like it's really hard to internalize concepts. And
Yeah.
it was in the very earliest days of the pandemic. I was dealing with a very serious, difficult issue in my own life where my partner was very, very ill. I was his full-time caregiver working a very demanding job. And I felt like, okay, I have sort of nothing to lose at this point in time. Everything is falling apart. So I might as well do this thing that I've always sort of
Love.
dreamed of. And I wanted to communicate my scientific findings in a way that would really connect with people, that would maybe skip that going through in one ear out the other process and would actually sort of touch them in their hearts and invite them into those new concepts. And so I started just I had to teach myself everything. I had no idea how to do graphic design or to make anything. And so it was a long process, but eventually, yeah, it's become a big part of how to communicate these ideas to people.
I absolutely love it. And if you also don't follow her Instagram accounts, I'm going to link them below. But I love following the New Happy Instagram account or New Happy Co. And it is just, I mean, if anyone ends up watching on YouTube, just these easy to see, if something like this comes up on my feed, I can read it and I can really feel it through the artwork. And it's just such a great, I love that you incorporated something that makes you truly happy as you are explaining these concepts. So one of the things that you talk about, we're kind of hinting at is community.
Mm.
I just finished with a patient who had, just recovered from a big surgery where she had her uterus removed. She was bleeding in her belly. And she said to me at that moment in time, when the nurse was helping me and the medical assistants and the blood that was getting transfused into me through people I've never met before that was saving my life, I felt like connection is really the only thing that matters at the end of the day. It was literally just before
Wow.
is an hour before we had this podcast. And so it just really, really struck me. And these synchronicities are like things I never take for granted. So let's talk a little bit about community and through your research and through your studies, what is the impact of community on society and connection?
Such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's everything. Like it really just it can't be summed up in anything less than that. Being a part of community and a community that embraces your authentic self and your struggles and your pain and your feelings and your needs, it's the pathway to happiness and to well-being. And I know a lot of us have had difficult experiences with community. So I want to also recognize that. Like when we are in a community that says you can't be like that, or you have to hide who you really are, that is not supportive in the full way that I'm talking about. You still can have the benefits of relationships and support and everything like that. But what I'm describing is this integration of the authentic self with other authentic selves to create something that's fully supportive. And I think the other thing about community is like we tend to think of it as this closed off thing, almost like a class in school. You know, your kids are in a classroom and they're in like 3A for the year and they're class 3A and like that's how we sort of think of community.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually much more generative to do what your patient was describing, which was in a single moment, you might be a part of a community, and then that community might disperse and never ever gather in that same form ever again. And it doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean it wasn't meaningful. Because in that moment, what she was describing is the the experience of giving and receiving help is what is at the core of all of this. And to be witnessing that and present to it and appreciating it in that way fills us with that feeling that she talked about. Like, what else is there? What
Yeah.
else matters?
Yeah. Yeah. You said something so interesting, giving and receiving help.
Mm.
Have we been conditioned to not receive help? And how is that part of old happy?
Yes, especially for women. It's such a huge problem. What I like to say to people who struggle to receive help is that helping other people is the pathway to your happiness. Being who you are and using who you are to help others, it's the pathway to happiness. So if you refuse to let somebody help you, you are also denying them the chance to be happy. And I know that's not what you want.
Right.
I know that's not what you want.
Yep,
So you
there you
have to
go,
let
girls.
them, you
Yeah.
have to let them help you because that is how relationships are formed. If you are the one carrying 100% of the responsibility, 100% of the the burden of your pain and your problems, and you don't let somebody help you carry it, it's not only going to harm you physically, as you would know better than anybody, but also it's going to harm your relationships because you're going to get resentful. You're going to feel a lot of difficult emotions. And that's how relationships end. Relationships that could be generative and beautiful and supportive. It's that
Yeah.
slow, like accrual of pain of not getting the support that you need that chips away at the bond that you have with people. And so, if you want to have healthy relationships with people, you cannot refuse to let them help you. You just can't.
Did you hear that? Did you guys hear that? Hit the like rewind 15-second button a few times. And that is so important. It is part of, you know, if you are if you like to be a giver and you like to give of yourself, you are denying your friends the opportunity to have the same experience that makes you happy if you don't receive that help. It's a give and take. I love that. You could not have said it better. I have been thinking a lot about community and a lot about how this, especially for women in midlife, is wrapped up into our health because our bodies are changing in midlife yet again. We didn't maybe have a big community in puberty, except for the video that we watched in gym class. Maybe your mom sat you down. Maybe you had a few friends who talked about it. But for me, especially in the world of perimenopause and menopause, in those transitions, asking your friends for help, where they find resources, what they do, or meeting and talking about these things is such a powerful thing. And it's how we're actually um, breaking gaps in women's healthcare is by forming communities. And I've been seeing women do this with the documentaries that are coming out and all of these things. So, anyways, I wanted to just say, I wanted to sort of pipe in there that I feel so strongly about this. Again, cannot say this enough. This book like really hit me in a time when I needed it. And what do we know about happiness and finding, I kind of want to ask you, like, I know you have a great exercise in the book, so I cannot recommend it enough, but how do you now put some of these concepts we've been talking about and sort of say, what are your little cues or ways that you kind of nudge people to think about or to journal that actually get them out of old happy into new happy?
I think that it can't be said enough that simply starting to name it and notice it is the most important thing because the parable that I talk about, it's like it's the water we're swimming in, right? We don't even notice it. And so, just building off of what you said, like, here's an example. So, let's say that I'm a woman navigating menopause and I'm noticing a strange symptom. Something's feeling off in my body. Old happy culture would tell you, ignore it, don't tell anyone you're feeling it. Keep it to
Mhm.
yourself. Maybe you can Google it, but that's like the most help that you can get. Maybe. And like bring it up at your next annual appointment that's happening in 9 months or whatever.
Mhm.
That's how old happy would show up in that moment because let's talk
Good
about like how
example.
it violates it, right? Oh, weird symptom. I'm not perfect. I must hide that I'm not perfect from everybody. Two is I have to achieve my way out of this. I have to figure out how to solve this problem and I have to do it by myself.
On
I
my
can't lean on
own.
anybody. So that is like, it's, this is why I think it's this process of unraveling. It's still something that I go through every single day where I notice new ways in which I was conditioned into responding. And I have to just gently, like, kind of meet it and pull it apart and then try on a new response again and again. And it becomes like pretty fun because you start to just it's, it's not tied to shame in any way. It's this like beautiful expansiveness of learning how you were essentially oppressed and how you start to free yourself from that. And so if you were in the situation and you notice that, then you would pause and say, okay, well, what's a new happy way to do this that's grounded in connection, in compassion and acceptance, and in community? And so you would say, oh, I feel pretty scared that I'm feeling this way. Like this feels really hard, and I can see how it violates this expectation that was put on me to be perfect. And I'm going to text one of my friends who might have gone through this before and just tell her about what's going on. And then I'm going to ask her if she has any advice or any thoughts. And then I'm going to respond to it in a way that feels aligned with my values. And all of a sudden, you're in a different reality. You're
Yeah.
living a different life.
That is so beautifully said. And to in my seat, see how we have made progress in this for women in midlife because we have had actually even community started by sometimes celebrities, Drew Barrymore or Holly Berry or celebrities coming out and saying, this thing's happening to me. I want to talk about it with the millions of you who are listening. It's not exactly the same as a close-knit community that's your friends, but it gives you some wiggle room to realize.
Totally.
But I still think unraveling old habits die hard, and we probably don't even know when we're doing it. They're just so intertwined. But
It
that was a
is.
beautiful example for women who listen to this show.
Thank you. I think like it's so empowering to have people who are brave and speaking out in that way. As you said, it gives us that entry point to be able to talk about it. And also, it always reminds me like sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? If you can talk about things publicly, if you can bring them, and whatever public means to you, public might be you and your best friend in a really intimate setting. Or if you have some like massive platform like that, maybe you are brave enough and courageous enough and have the resources to protect you if you want to speak up in that way. And that's
Yeah.
wonderful. And every little bit matters, right? Like every moment. And this is another example of how we help each other in ways that we don't even know. Someone like Halle Berry speaking up and talking about her experiences, she likely has helped millions of people. Or I'm thinking about, Olivia Munn, who had breast cancer and then who
Yep.
put out the PSA to get that test to be able to help identify it early, right? Like these are things that ripple out and touch our lives in ways that fundamentally change them forever that could never be done alone. And that is how
Mhm.
we help each other to be happy.
Yeah. And it's so much like I'm getting goosebumps. And then, for me, I want to, because we can't always rely on our celebrities every month to talk about it, then we have to take those pieces and form, those very close-knit communities,
Mm.
and really continue all of the good juices coming from these, like I was gonna call it PR miracles, because even still, Old Happy, they wouldn't have let, women talk about these things maybe years ago or a decade ago. These things would be taboo, or these things would be too personal, or these things would mean you're too old, or etc. And so it's just such a wonderful experience. Well, I've loved our conversation. I feel like I we could go on forever. If you have not read the new Happy, it is a Dr. Heather Hirsch absolute must. You need to throw it in your Amazon cart. It changed my life, and I really use this to help guide what I want to do both personally and professionally this year. And so again, I'm fangirling getting to meet with you and have you, because I understand that parasocial relationship of I feel like I've spent time with you and I follow you. I follow all of your amazing infographics, and it's just been so wonderful. So, what is next for you? What is your pie in the sky dream?
Oh gosh, you're so kind. I can't tell you how much that means to me. Thank you so much. I I want to create a movement that changes the world to make it into a place where we can all be happy because everybody deserves that. We all deserve to be free to be who we really are and to live in communities that meet our needs and to have support from institutions to make that easier. And so that's ultimately my goal is just to help people to wake up to the ways in which they have been harmed by these systems and wanting to show them that there is another way that can give them the happiness they're looking for right here and now. They don't have to wait for it.
And I have to say, once I kind of read your book and took some time to reflect, it wasn't too hard of a shift. It's really just digesting these concepts and then you're kind of off and running. I mean, I felt,
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's
so
what I hear a lot. And it's like the highest compliment because I think like what I think is that everybody knows that what's in this book at a core level, in your soul, in your heart. You know this stuff is true. But when you have spent your entire life being told the opposite, sometimes it helps to have somebody outside of you to confirm it and to put it in language that makes it clear and digestible, and then give you like suggestions for how to get going. And so my hope is that when you read it, you're like, this is true. And now I know what to do. Because it's that
yeah,
friction that gets in the way, right? Like,
yeah,
or feeling the other thing that's hard is, well, I live in an old happy world. So how am I supposed to be the only person who's living in this way? But the good news is you're not. There are so
you're
many
not.
people, including like what you're doing and your
Yeah.
community and everything like that. There are so many of us out there, and we just need to support each other and know that we're not alone in this.
Yeah, I could not, let's do a weekend ago or so. I through my through held my first ever in-person conference where I had clinicians come together and taught them what I knew about how to start their own practice. And just again, I cannot tell you that experience itself was wonderful and creating community was wonderful. And for all these women who came and are now best friends for life. It's just the most beautiful thing to see. But I am telling you, when I read your book in the winter, this really solidified that these were the things where I wanted to place my energy. And I could not echo that more. I think the book is great to just really help you, you know, feel validated, digest this, and then take some actionable steps. And so I want to say thank you for writing this book. I know how hard it is to write a book. You could probably do a social media post and it could go viral in way shorter time. I'm talking like 5 minutes of your time versus the 3 years it takes to write a book and illustrate it. So thank you. This book has helped so many and probably, hopefully, millions of people. So where can everyone find you if they want to? And of course, I'm going to put all the links in the show notes below.
Thank you so much. The best place is thenewhappy.com or on social media at New Happy Co.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, so much. I hope you guys absolutely love this episode. Please, please share this with a friend. When I got the message that you wanted to come on the show, I was so excited. So share this with your friends because we really want to give Stephanie all the love that she deserves. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for your time. I'll see you guys next week for a brand new episode. Bye, everyone.